All right, you guys, hello. Um, Welcome to day one of the Craving Control Challenge. Day one is really just laying the foundation. So, what I want to do today is talk about what are the different types of hunger and cravings, and how do we identify with each of them. Most of us will have eaten for all of the reasons I'm about to dive into at some point. Some of us are going to notice that we probably eat for some of these reasons more often than others, and that's totally fine. Like, that's very normal for our relationship with food and with hunger. Um, so I'm going to just jump right in, and then we'll talk about what your guys' takeaways are for the day. So when we talk about hunger, there are 5 types that are identified by intuitive eating principles. If you Google on the internet, you can probably find like up to 12 in terms of like, some people will be like, eye hunger, smell hunger, cellular hunger. In this challenge, we're not going to dive quite that far. I think these 5 will take care of pretty much everything that we're going to experience. So we're going to stick there for the next 7 days. So type 1 of hunger, physical hunger, right? This comes from a physical need for energy. It can manifest in a gnawing feeling in your stomach. It can also manifest in fatigue, headaches, shakiness, irritability, mood swings, right? We've probably all experienced hangry at some point. When you are physically hungry, you should eat. I also want to iterate that physical hunger doesn't always just mean a growling stomach, right? It could be a headache. It could be feeling a little bit slumped. It could be irritable. If you have not eaten in 4 to 5 hours and you're feeling something, chances are it's hunger, but it is going to manifest. When we're talking physical, we're talking a physical sensation of some sort. Okay. It's just not always the typical, like, oh, my stomach is growling. I will also say this: if you have been out of touch with your hunger and fullness cues for a while, physical hunger might manifest differently, and physical satiation, in terms of like fullness, might also manifest differently. What I want you guys to trust is that if you can practice standard principles of eating, which would be eating every 3 to 4 hours, maybe 3 to 5, generally eating 3 meals a day, right? Not just snacks, but eating at least 3 meals a day, and eating a balance of carbohydrates, proteins, and fat. If you can do that consistently for a while, those physical hunger signals are going to start to come back online. I speak from experience when I say, like, I was very restrictive with food for a long time, and so hunger cues were out the window. And that is because your body is trying to save you. It realizes that it's not getting the fuel that it needs. And so it starts to drop the hunger hormone in your body. It's not going to tell your body it's hungry because it doesn't think you're going to get food. Your fullness cues also go away, though, a little bit. So that is all to say that it's okay if you've been a little bit out of practice. I want you to trust that those things can come back online, and they will if you stick to, and I'm not saying it has to be 7:30 every morning and noon every day that you eat lunch in order for that to come back online. But generally speaking, if you can start to eat every 3 to 4 hours, if you can get 3 meals in a day, if you can eat a balance of nutrients, those cues will start to come back online. So that's physical hunger and physical cravings are interchangeable. Those 2 are the same. Emotional hunger and emotional cravings are also interchangeable. They're the exact same thing. So 2 birds with 1 stone for the first 2. Emotional hunger is when you have an unmet emotional need, and that increases your desire to eat. This is generally recognizable by a very immediate tie to an emotional experience. Like, I just got in a fight with my partner and he slammed the door and walked out, and now I'm desiring food. I don't think emotional eating eating as a negative connotation. I think emotional eating can be completely normal and honestly is a form of healthy eating when we're doing it correctly. The difference is that a lot of people think that emotional eating and binge eating are interchangeable, and they are very different things. Emotional eating would be, say that experience happened, I had a fight with my partner, and I'm trying to calm myself down. And what I'm going to do is reach into the cabinet and grab a piece of chocolate, and I'm going to slowly let that chocolate melt in my mouth, and I'm going to enjoy the taste of it and the texture of it. And I'm going to breathe while I do it. And I'm going to let it calm me down. Binge eating is when I am overwhelmed emotionally and I can't handle it, and I'm going to eat. Now I'm going to go through, I'm going to grab the bag of chips and I'm going to eat them all. And by the time I'm done with the bag, I don't even really realize what I've done, but I know that that emotion is still kind of, and I don't like it. And so now I'm going to go grab a burger or grab some other food that sounds good, right? It could be anything, and maybe it's a salad, but the point is it's eating to avoid an emotion. Whereas emotional eating is actually eating to help soothe an emotion, right? Two different things. We can talk about both of them. We're going to talk about both of them. So emotional hunger and an emotional craving are the same thing. And then there's binge eating, which is a separate thing. And we're not going to dive super, super deep into binge eating in this challenge. But if it's something that you feel like you relate to and want to talk about more, I'm happy to talk to you guys about it. It's just not one of the main 5 that we're kind of focusing on when we think about the types of hunger and the types of cravings. It's a little bit, it's there, it's real, it's separate. Okay. I think sometimes emotional hunger can also be confused with physical hunger. I think the difference is that emotional hunger comes on quickly and is usually coupled with an emotional or an uncomfortable or an intense emotion, right? Could be sadness, anxiety, loneliness. Could also be extreme joy. I've definitely seen that. You feel it more in your head than in your stomach. Sometimes it's thought of as ooh, a reward, right? I'm excited. I just got a big win at work and now I'm going to go treat myself. That would be more emotional hunger, right? The third one, so those emotional, physical hunger and physical cravings, emotional hunger, emotional cravings. The third type of craving is a habitual craving. This is very similar to an emotional craving or emotional hunger. The difference is it's not as acutely tied to an emotion. So an example of this would be, there was a Friday night one week that I was sick and my friend was having a party and I had to miss the party because I felt sick. And now I am feeling lonely and I'm missing out socially and I'm feeling depleted socially. So I decide that I'm going to order an extra large pizza and I'm going to binge Netflix to make myself feel better. Now, months or even years later, I still am ordering pizza and watching Netflix on Friday night. And I've just kind of associated it with that's who I am or that's what I do. It stems from something emotional that happened at one point, even though that specific emotional incident is no longer necessarily affecting us. I think people do this all the time, right? It's easy to get in routines. I personally moved around every year after I graduated college for a number of years, and I started over socially over and over and over again. And I remember nights where I craved, I looked forward to going home and sitting on the couch and eating a meal that I enjoyed instead of putting myself out there and potentially getting rejected socially. So there's a lot of things that can bring it on. It is okay if it's happened to you. And it's also a good thing to notice that you're not doing that out of physical hunger, right? Okay, so that takes care of the 3 types of cravings and the first 2 types of hunger. The third type of hunger is taste hunger. So this is present when you're craving something specific, right? So this means a certain food just sounds really damn good right now. An example would be you're at a wedding and you want a piece of the wedding cake because it sounds really good and it feels like it's part of the event, even though you just had a big dinner and you're not hungry. It can be the same at a restaurant when you're, satisfied with your meal, but you want to order a dessert. It just sounds really good. It generally means that you're eating when you're not hungry. It doesn't mean that you're not allowed to do it. You are allowed to do it. It's just good that you identify it for what it is. Number 4 is necessity hunger, or I call it practical hunger. And this is, again, not physical hunger, but it's a need to eat in anticipation of hunger later. So an example would be if you're at work and you have back-to-back meetings from 9 till 1, right? Or even 9 till noon, like, you know that you're going to get hungry and you're anticipating that. So even though you're not hungry in the moment, you eat in order to stay ahead of the inevitable hunger. And so you don't feel hangry later. Okay. This is also a valid thing. I actually encourage this way of eating often because I think the other way can lend to more restriction potentially. But it's, again, something to identify as not hunger, but a good reason to eat, like a very valid reason to eat, as are all of these reasons in their right state. It's a place for all of these. The 5th and the last type of hunger is going to be nutrient hunger. This comes from our need for nourishment. So example is you head to Vegas for a bachelorette party and you come back craving veggies and green juice, right? Or after you finish your period, you are craving red meat. Essentially, like, our bodies are smart, right? They know what nutrients they need and when. They know when they're missing something. This is why I feel like diets like keto, paleo, even vegan to an extent can remove entire food groups that our body wants, and food groups that have essential nutrients that our bodies need and might be asking for. So this is why I'm like, balance. So you have physical hunger, physical cravings, emotional hunger, emotional cravings, same things. We'll just call it habitual hunger for the ease of this. Honestly, let's just call them all hunger. Then we have taste hunger, necessity hunger, and nutrient hunger. Okay. And I will I'll list them in the app so that you guys have them written out. And actually, you know what I'm also going to do is I'm just going to share my screen right now, and you guys can pause this video and look at this. The only one that isn't on this this sheet that I wrote is habitual cravings. And you, again, can think of habitual as emotional, but not similar to emotional, but the emotion's no longer directly tied, right? So go ahead and you can just pause this video, and that way you have these examples. And what I want you guys to do next is I want you to stop share. What I want you guys to do next is I want you to get out your journals or whatever you're using for this challenge. And I want you to identify a time that you can remember, the first one that you can remember, when you've eaten for each of the ways. So we've got 6, right? How did you feel when you were engaging with food for that reason? Are there any judgments that you feel towards yourself, or thoughts or feelings that you're having towards yourself right now and around that experience? Just start to bring awareness into it. That's all today. Okay. Your other homework for today is I really want you guys to get into the chat and just pop in, introduce yourself. Okay. You guys can leave a voice memo, or you can do it through text, or you can even throw a video in there if you want to, but introduce yourself. Tell us what you are hoping to get out of this challenge. If you could walk away with one piece of information or one thing that you felt better about, what would that be? why'd you join? What do you want to get out of it? Tell us why you're here. And anything else that you want to tell us about yourself. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite food? Food would be a good one, right? That feels fitting. So yeah, can't wait to see you guys in there. And we are now rolling on this. And here's my little floof that hopped up behind us. Thank you guys for being here. I'm really excited to dive into this with you. If you have questions, obviously reach out. But yeah, that is day one. Have fun with it. I'll chat with you guys soon.